Lightning episode 2 and The Flash episode 2. So let's get right into it, baby! So The Flash this week actually had two very distinct storylines. It was, for starters, Barry Allen, after Barry and Iris had spoken to the Monitor, Barry, he's all shook up because of the crisis, and then, he's just like, yeah, like, I'm gonna die, Iris, and then she's like, no, Barry, we're gonna find a way, we always find a way. So then Barry's like, alright, cool. In order for me to find out what's going on, he said December 10th, I'm going to go into the future, I'm going to find out what's the deal. He tries to go into the future, and then come to find out, he has like a brand new Gideon device that he built. He goes into the future, the Gideon's telling him, she's like, we're in November 1st, November 10th. When he gets to December 10th, the Speed Force blocks him from going through, and it actually like scarred him, and, Jay Garrick told him that he could have died if it wasn't for his healing power. Come to find out, he can't he can't go into the future, so he has to he has to figure this one out. So he goes to Jay Garrick. Jay Garrick puts the helmet on his head. He has his new assistant, the woman that he mentioned in last season. He said that he found the woman that he's going to start working with, and he likes her, blah blah blah. Come to find out, she's Barry's mom's doppelganger. So Jay Garrick and Barry's mom, the two of them have found each other once again. So, they put the helmet on him, and then they said this will allow Barry to travel in, he can see parallel universes, he can see different outcomes, he can see, it's basically like since he can't run into the future, they're going to put his brain through the future. So they put the helmet on him, he sees different Earths, different possibilities, different outcomes, different shapes. There's even one where they actually show Caitlin, Ralph, Cisco, and Iris, disintegrate the same way how Earth 2 disintegrated on Arrow. More on that later. And it was kind of cool because Cisco he had the Vibe costume on, so I guess that's their way of saying that he eventually gets his powers back, but we all know who's going to get his powers back. So, everybody disappears, everybody, everybody gets wiped away. And then he spoke to Iris, and then, Iris was just like, we'll find another way. And then he was like, woman, I saw 5 billion different ways. And he said the only situation in which everyone lives is the situation where I sacrifice myself and the Flash dies, like the paper says. And he's kind of he's accepted it. He's just like, look, it's a wrap for me. There's nothing we could do. And Iris is like, no, Barry, we always find a way, which they do, because she even told him, she said that in the original newspaper, he was fighting Thawne. The paper changed, so if the paper can change then, there's no reason why it can't change now. Though Thawne will still probably have something to do with it, most likely. So, after that, Barry's he's all scarred up, his brain is fried. And then he's just he's shook. He ends up speaking to Joe. Iris gets upset because she's just you sound like you're giving up. And she's like, and the Barry I know never gives up. Alright, cool. So our second storyline, we have a new metahuman in the city, Allegra. She was in prison at 15 with her cousin Esperanza. And, she was in Esperanza. Allegra was in Esperanza's gang during, and then she told her she didn't want to be in the gang anymore. The two of them got into a fight because you just can't quit a jail gang. And all this happened during the particle accelerator explosion. So, Esperanza, she was pronounced dead, and Allegra ended up, going to jail. She gets out of jail. She's trying to become a detective. She's trying to, be a reporter and, and discover news stories. Come to find out, 2 people ended up getting killed, and she was there both times. She was there both times trying to investigate. So everybody naturally assumed that she killed the person because everybody knew that she was a meta. Allegra has the ability to see sound waves. She can project sound waves, like radio waves, car waves. She can see. She said that when you take because she had the metahuman cuffs on, and she said that when you take the cuffs off, she's like, I can see all the waves. But she was on trial because for allegedly killing somebody. Cecile was the person who was in charge of putting her to jail, but because Cecile has the power where she can feel people's feelings, she knew that Allegra wasn't the killer. She knew that there was something more. So she tried to talk to her. She changed her defense. She tried to, helped the girl out. She trusted her. They let her go, and then she ends up, she ends up in a person's apartment, and then the person's apartment that she ended up with, he wound up dead. Iris and Ralph ended up investigating the situation, and then they found Allegra with the burnt guy. So once again, they're just like, she's out here killing people, and then she's just like, I didn't do it. You got to believe me. And then they lock her up. Joe talks to her, and then Cecile, she wasn't gonna give up. She was just like, look, there's something going on. She was like, I can feel your energy. She's like, there's something more, so tell me the story. So she told her the story. She was like, bam, my cousin and I, we got into some ish, but my cousin's dead. I'm not the one killing people, but I don't know who is the one killing people. Come to find out, after further review, because Iris now has the Central City Citizen set up where Cisco's girlfriend works for her. Ralph helps out from time to time because he's across the hall. And they're actually doing the detective thing. They're doing the reporter thing. Through further digging, they find out that when Esperanza was pronounced dead, some weird secret organization ended up taking her body, and they brought her back to life. And it turns out that she's now a secret assassin called Ultraviolet, and she was the one who was sent to kill those people. Allegra just happened to be there, be at the wrong place, wrong time, because she was investigating, and obviously everybody blamed everything on her, But this actually goes back to Arrow, though, because on an episode of Arrow, there was a supervillain who had the ability. He had playing card tattoos all over his body. He was able to take the playing card off of his body, turn it into a solid object, and throw it at people. And cut people. They ended up kidnapping him. They ended up defeating him at the end, and Cisco and the Atom, Ray Palmer, they brought him to Star Labs. They did a background check on the guy, and then they found out that the guy wasn't in Central City when the particle accelerator went off. So Cisco's whole thing was, well, if he wasn't in Central City when the particle accelerator went off, how could he be a metahuman? And they never brought that up again. They never went back to that ever again. So now that there's like this secret organization that seems to be using metas, to do like evil deeds, a la Black Lightning, maybe we'll finally get the answer for that. Maybe the playing card guy will come back. And Esperanza Ultraviolet, she was one of the people, who was a victim of that. So now Cecile ends up at the end. She decides that they end up finding out that Ultraviolet's the actual killer. The Flash comes in and like saves the day. They take her out. Esperanza gets locked up, and Cecile basically ends up saying that because she trusted her instincts, with Allegra, she wants to become a metahuman public defender. Giving them, helping them out, like making sure they're innocent, giving them jobs, putting them back into society, which is good because she has the ability to do that. So she ends up giving, since Allegra wanted to be a reporter, she wanted to be like, a journalist or whatever. Anyway, she ends up giving her, an internship with the Central City Citizen. So Iris West, her group is growing, like her crew is growing, like it's getting bigger. She has more people now. She has a photographer. She has another reporter. She has a detective. And, Iris is she's building her empire outside of the whole Team Flash thing, which is really cool to see because I like Candace in that role. Killer Frost was doing this thing where she's trying to discover herself, and she's trying to find out who she is. She ends up going to Cisco's girlfriend's photo art gallery, and then it makes her want to, express herself and draw. Come to find out, she can't draw, but she talks to Cisco, and then she ends up, drawing some stuff, speaking to her inner child. So Caitlin, Killer Frost, like she's trying to expand and do her thing. So that's cool. Nothing happened with Cisco this week. Joe's all over the place. Like he was, we got the classic Joe-Barry conversations that, that we're used to. And now we have Barry and Iris trying to figure out how to change the timeline. We have Barry's mom and Barry's dad together on Earth 3. Barry done seen the future. And we have Esperanza, Ultraviolet, who's now in prison. And we have another metahuman that works for Iris. The doctor, the Hindi doctor, we didn't forget about him. He basically did an experiment on this dude that he rolled up on in the beginning of the episode, and then the guy attacked him, and then you find out that he actually has he stretched his arm out and yoked him up. So his power, I don't know if he's stretchy like Ralph, but he has some weird power thing going on. And then in the end, he was actually doing an experiment on the dude after he knocked him out, and then the guy got up out of the table and almost ran up on him. So Only I don't know what's even going on with that. But but I said, but good episode of The Flash because it was very solid. Like, you know, they had Barry doing one thing, they had Iris and the team doing something else, and both stories come together at the end. So we'll definitely see where this goes going forward. So this week's episode of Black Lightning, it starts out with the laboratory that Odell has all the metas in. The Muslim girl, she has her chameleon powers, and then she's noticing that she's beginning to bleed from the eyes, and you know she's starting to deteriorate. Lynn does the scans on her, and Lynn finds out that she's actually dying. She says that every time she uses her powers, you know, it's killing her internally. So, you know, she can't hold food anymore. Like, she's always like throwing up. Like I said, the girl's basically died, so they got to find a way to stabilize her, even if that's even possible. Lynn and Jen actually struggled a bit in this episode, you know, like marital wise. Obviously, the frustration of being locked up, you know, at the Odell Center, like, is starting to get to them. You know, but also they're disagreeing on the situation because Jeff wasn't very happy that Lynn was still doing Odell's bidding, if you will, trying to stabilize the metas. You know, because obviously Odell wants a metahuman army. He even got an email from his bosses letting him know that the Markovians, you know, have put themselves together, and the Markovians are about to make a run on Freeland. You know, so the Markovians, they're set up in a warehouse, the classical warehouse, you know, and they're about to, you know, they're making plans to go after the city. Lynn's whole thing is like, she wants to save the kids. She's just like, you know, like, I know Odell has his agenda, but she was just like, you know, screw Odell's agenda. She was like, I just don't want these kids to die, so I'm not going to sacrifice these children. You know, the Jeff was just like, oh, but what you're doing, you're falling right into his hands, and then, you know, so the two of them are like, you know, like, they're at odds about that. Braxton's character, you know, he comes in, you know, he beefs with Jeff a little bit, had the nerve to call him a meta when I'm like, bro, like, you're a meta. And, you know, and then he ended up moving Lynn and Jeff to their own private room where the two of them can, you know, be married and talk in peace, which pretty much wasn't the case. Lynn ends up doing like experiments on the girl, and she ends up also doing experiments with Jeff there, but she had both of them separated, so I guess, like, they're still trying to keep Black Lightning's identity a secret, you know. So she had Jeff on one side, she had the girl on the other. The girl ended up collapsing, you know, so they take care of her. Jeff ends up talking to the girl, you know, and like pumping her for information about things that she's heard, what the NSA is doing, you know. And then Jeff and Lynn got into an argument about that because Lynn's like, you know, I can't believe, like, you pumped a 16-year-old girl for information, and he's like, well, you should be asking the right questions. And because the two of them, like Jeff's whole thing is, he feels like Lynn doesn't care about what the NSA is actually doing and the fact that Freeland is suffering. She just wants to, you know, do her experiments. And Lynn's whole thing is, you know, she even said to him, she was just like, you sound like you don't care about whether or not these kids live or die. So, you know, and then, like, trust was an issue with the two of them. So they're going through it. You know, the two of them are going through it. Nyssa, she's on the other side of the fence. she's helping the Purdy, and we got a call back to season 1. The female character from season 1 who ended up having, like, the twin babies with the white guy who ended up dying. You know, her, and then, like, the father who the father who does the sign language. She spoke to the two of them. You know, she worked out a deal with them. Like, she paid them for, like, food and, like, supplies because they're going to provide shelter for all the metas that Nyssa brings across the border. But the weird thing is, the girl who, you know, she ended up catching, like, an attitude with Nyssa. She's just like, oh, you brought too many people, you know. And then this was like, yeah, but, you know, like, she was like, you know, you brought too many people and there's not enough food for everybody. And Nyssa's like, yeah, but I paid for that food though, and you took the money, you know. Like, and then, like, me and your dad worked out, you know, like, your dad and I, we worked out a plan, so I don't know what your problem is. And she was like, I don't want nobody to be killed like my mom, like you killed my mom. And then I was like, hold up. I'm like, first of all, Nyssa birthed your damn children, saved your family. Your mom was collateral damage trying to protect your crazy ass kids. They killed that crazy white girl who was possessing people. And I'm like, yo, this broad is mad and grateful right now. And then she's like, you know, and then she was just like, oh, we gotta establish ground rules. I'm like, how you gonna establish ground rules when you took my money? You know, and then, like, you know, the pops was just like, you know, he's like, are you trying to threaten? And I was like, Nyssa had enough. Like, Nyssa was like, look, like, I did everything the right way. Like, I paid y'all, I let y'all know what's up. Y'all trying to change the rules in the, you know, like, in the third quarter. So she was just like, nah, it ain't happening. Like, you gotta honor your agreement. She even rolled up on Pops, like yoked him up, like almost got blasted. And then after all that, like the girl got the nerve to be like, "Well," and then like later on, the metas ended up, like working in the fields and the farms for the, for the Purdy. So, and then one meta actually has nature powers, like, like she has a la Poison Ivy. There's one meta that had Poison Ivy powers. So once that they saw that the girl was able to make trees and plants and flowers grow, they're like, okay, maybe we could work something out, because obviously she can help with the crops and she can help like feed the people, feed the prey, whatever. But then she's gonna be like, just so you know, we'll never trust you again. And I'm like, first of all, bitch, like I'm saying, like you got some nerve. Like that actually made me a little sad. Like how, like looking at that girl from season 1 and then seeing how ungrateful she became in season 2 is actually really sad. And I hope they don't flip it and turn it into a situation where Nyssa ends up becoming, like pushy and ends up having like a bad attitude and ends up like taking what she wants, because Nyssa was actually justified in that situation. Gambi hit her up on the comms, and then they're trying to work something out. He's just giving her the 411 to let her know what's going on. Jennifer, she's at school, missing Khalil. She's just trying to like stay to herself. She's home by herself. Odell rolls up on her at the crib, gives her a phone. It has Jeff and Lynn on the phone, basically telling them that everything's okay. Odell spoke to Jennifer. He's like, listen, I'm going to give your family special treatment. And then Jen was like, don't do that, because, she's like, we're just like everybody else. So that's that Pierce family teaching right there. So, Jen was in a good place this episode. She was just hurt over Khalil. And she's actually taking a stand, like a more like, leader stand, because when she was at school, there were some kids that were fighting at school. She broke up the fight. And then it wasn't like, people were clapping because she beat the 2 kids up. And then she was like, nah, she was like, don't clap for that, because she was like, we're not trying to tear each other down. We're trying to help each other. We're trying to build each other. She was like, this isn't the way to go about it. And she wanted everybody, to get along, but, teenagers are being teenagers and like they're spazzing out, and like there's really nothing she can do about it. And I guess she got to a point where she got to the breaking point where she was like, look, y'all want to act like a bunch of animals? She was like, fine, we'll see, like keep that same energy, and then let's see what happens. So next episode, I believe Jennifer is going to be on the rampage. Gambi and Henderson ended up clicking up together. They rolled up on Braxton, and then Gambi stole like a hard drive or something from his computer, so he has access to the NSA's information. So it's actually kind of cool to see Gambi and Henderson, work together in tandem. My boy, no Tobias this episode. Lord knows where Principal Laurie is. It's like he hasn't been seen in like God knows how long. We ended up getting a Khalil sighting. Khalil, he ended up, like we find out that the NSA revived his spine. They brought him back to life, and they brainwashed him. They planted knowledge into his brain, suggestions, brainwashing, and they basically sending their painkiller weapon for a test run. And Odell's bitch ass was like, yo, he sent him to kill his mom. And even I keep calling him Braxton because I don't remember his name, but even Braxton was like, he was like, sir, he was just like, do you really think we should be sending the boy to kill his own mama? And then Odell was like, yes, because that's what we do. So it was like, that was jacked up. And at the end of the episode, Khalil rolled up on his mom. She was happy to see him. And then he grabbed her by the neck, filled her body full of poison. And the boy killed his own mama. So I don't know if that's really Khalil, if that's just like a puppet Khalil. But if that is Khalil, and the brainwashing wears, because I feel like when he bumps into Jennifer, the brainwashing will wear off. But once the brainwashing wears off and he just realizes like he killed his mama, that's going to be an emotion. Like, I don't want to be around Khalil when that happens. And that was pretty sad to see, to see the mom, the actress who plays his mom die. So she's off the show now. And then finally, my boy Lala, he's walking the streets and he's just like, yo, he rolled up on his old crew. And it was funny, like, they got me with that because when he came out the car, there was like 5-6 people with him. And I was just like, yo, Lala rolling deep. And then come to find out those were a bunch of people that he killed because they were all tattoos. And I'm like, fine. I'm buying the whole thing with the tattoo man. I'm buying the whole thing with him seeing these people, with these bodies coming off of him having conversations with the tattoos. I'm perfectly fine with that. But they're not real. He can't manifest them into like solid beings. And if that's the case, because people can't see them. So if you're going to do that, but then don't have them opening doors. Because, I'm like, you can't have them open doors and then 2 seconds later they disappear into a puff of smoke. Because now I'm just like, are they solid being objects? So we don't know what's going on with that. But you know, he rolled up on some of the he actually Lala's actually doing good. You know, he's playing like the anti-hero hero, where he rolled up on another drug dealer who was basically charging people for food, and he was like, yo, that's what we don't do that in Freeland. And he's like, my city don't get down like that. We don't charge people that are just trying to survive. And the dude shot him. Lala got up because he can't die. The homeboy ran off, and then Lala's like, yo, I'm taking back the streets. So, you know, it's actually pretty crazy that Lala can't die, but he's taking back the streets now, so this is it's the Lala show. Like, it's the Lala show, so I hope he does stay good for a little bit longer, because eventually he's going to go bad again. And then once he goes bad, you know, it'll be interesting to see like what happens, since he obviously can't die. But yeah, nice solid episode. Oh, by the way, the reporter, she's still there. she's still clapping back with the news, so that's interesting. And but good solid episode. So, you know, we'll see what episode 3 has to hold, and you know, Black Lightning, it's picking up. So next episode, I you know, based on like pictures that I've seen, you know, it's probably going to be Gen heavy, and I'm looking forward to that, because I want to see what happens when she puts on the costume and actually starts kicking some serious ass. So that was it. That was my Flash and Black Lightning episodes 2 review. You know, again, I'm trying to catch up on this stuff. We got a lot of DC shows. I still got Titans coming. I still got to do Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow hasn't even started yet. So give a comment, like, and or subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, as always, guys, I'm out this